Hello everyone, this is Pearl Joseph, and this is my second video for the Fibroid Code. First of all, I want to apologise because I was hoping to have done a video over the weekend, but I had a really bad cold. I wasn't able to speak more than anything, although that I think my husband was very happy about. But today, I want to talk to you about a bit about my journey from when I first realised and found out I had a fibroid and those type of symptoms. And I think it's really important that I start with this to be able to resonate with every woman out there who has gone through what I've gone through. Because for me, at the time when I found out that I had a fibroid, I didn't know anybody else that had had one. And I felt it was slightly lonely. I didn't have people to talk to. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a world where speaking about fibroids, talking about it openly, about the heavy periods, the huge blood clots you get, the swollen stomach, the pains, is not something that we openly talk about with our colleagues, even with our family. So I felt very much alone, a little bit confused, thinking, what's going on with me? I could just about barely speak to my doctor about my issues. I don't want any woman out there to go through what I went through, which is why I want to talk about it today. I want every woman to know that you are not alone. We may have all different kind of fibroids. We may have all different kinds of symptoms. But one thing that we do have in common is that we want our fibroids gone. And I'm here to support you on your journey. I'm really excited about it because I know what I went through, and I'll be discussing that with you over the next coming weeks. You'll hear my journey, how my life was, and how I was able to transform it. And I promise you one thing, if I can ever promise anybody anything, is that I'll be there for you, and I'll be there for you every step of the way. So whether or not you're going through the depression that it causes, the anxiety, just know that me, Pearl Joseph, will be there for you. And I look forward to the day that you'll be like me, where you're able to say you're fibroid free. Do you know, the funny thing is, I think I've had, or should I say, had heavy fibroids for as long as I can remember. I was about 18 years old, starting university, and I used to find that sometimes I could be in the lecture hall, and if it was my period, and the lectures would be for an hour long, I would be kind of like nervous about the end of the lecture because you've been sitting down for that long, having to get up and go to the toilet because of that gush of blood that you'd feel when you stand up. But then when I used to speak to my friends, some of them would say, yeah, you know, I had the same, and some would they say they wouldn't. And I remember once speaking to my doctor, mustering up the courage to speak to him and saying, oh, you know, I've got heavy periods. And he just said to me, it was part of growing up. It was part of your body changing from being a young teenager going into becoming a woman. And I just left it there at that point. And I suffered. But some of the things, like I said, I wanted to discuss with you is kind of like on my journey is how I used to suffer. In a sense that fibroids to some extent was controlling my life. People would ask me, oh, Pearl, do you want to go out here? Do you want to go out there? And I would actually have to check the calendar and try and work out when I'd be on my period. Because I knew that once I was on my period, I wasn't going anywhere. And my periods were lasting, on average, about 2.5 weeks. And that's just the bleeding. That's not even the pain that you get just before the period and the tiredness you feel after. When I think about all the symptoms that goes together in relation to the fibroid, you're suffering for about 3 weeks within a month. I was becoming anemic. I didn't even know I was becoming anemic. I'd go to the nail shop, get a manicure, get a pedicure. They'd say, your nails are feeling really weak. But I'd be like, oh, I don't know, really. Maybe it's because I used to get my nails done often. But actually, it was none of that. It was a symptom of me having anemia, which is in relation to the fibroids. But because all this went untreated for so long. I just suffered and suffered and suffered. Until one day when I realised, this isn't right. I was working overseas in India, and I'd gone to an event. The event was probably no more than 2 hours. It was my time with my mum. It was maybe the 4th day of my period. And while I was at the event, sitting down, it was eating. And then I got up. To do something. And the gush of blood, like I said, that I felt, but this time I was like, this is even more heavy than normal. And I went back to the hotel. I had to actually go back to my hotel. I couldn't stay at the event anymore. I had to go back. And I was wearing very thick pads specifically for people with a heavy flow. And I had soaked through that pad. I had soaked through in my knickers. I'd soaked through to the jeans that I was wearing. Luckily, that I had a very long top on, and I had jeans on as well, so you couldn't see. I was like, wow, the amount of blood I'm losing isn't normal. And I'm sure most of you have been through that. You've been through those days where you've wanted to go out to events, but your period is going to stop you, or you've been at work. You've been in a situation at work where you're in the office and you're in a meeting, or you're in an environment where you can't get to the toilet, but you know that you need to go before you have some type of period accident, or you're at home. You're working from home because you're so tired and you're worried about your manager, your boss, having to take time off every month for your period, knowing that some of your colleagues don't understand what you're going through because some of them don't go through it. And it is one of those things. If it's not happening to you, most of the time people don't really care. And this is why I'm so lucky and privileged to have the husband that I do have, because he obviously doesn't have periods, but he cares. He cares. And this is why I'm fibroid free today. My biggest issue, and I'm going to go on about it in my next video, was how, like I said, fibroids change your life, how it really changed my life, was an incident that happened to me in 2015. I was at work. I actually had gone a couple of months, I think it was like 2 months or so without a period. But that could happen as well because of my anemia. The anemia would make my cycles very irregular. And then I went to work again. I stood up. But this time I wasn't on my period before. Normally where your period will start on the first day, you'll get the trickle before it goes heavy. I wasn't on my period. And I stood up and the gush of blood came out. This was so bad that I ran to the toilets. Luckily it was cold in the UK, so I had thick 100 denier tights on. I ran to the toilet, and the blood that I saw, I literally had to ask somebody to come and mop the floor. I went home, and that night, in the middle of the night, I went to the hospital. And that's when I found out that I was pregnant. I was 4 months pregnant. But the doctors actually thought that I was pregnant with twins because the fibroid that I had inside of me was so big. It was the size of a 4-month-old baby inside the womb. Because of the size of the fibroid, I was left in a very, very unfortunate situation where I had to have a forced termination because the fibroid was so big. There was no room left in my womb for the baby to grow. It was one of the worst days of my life. The actual date was Friday the 13th. You hear about horror films being called Friday the 13th. But that day for me, Friday the 13th of March, 2015, was an awful day. And sometimes you figure, like, why do things happen? But if that hadn't happened, I would never have been diagnosed with having a fibroid. And that, if that had never happened, I would never be able to be here today to speak to you. Who knows how long I would have been suffering with this for. So that's a part of my journey. And like I say, I'll be doing these videos more regularly now that do not no longer have a cold. And I'll explain to you more about how I went from having a forced termination and going through the process of what happened after that with my doctor to try and shrink my fibroid. Because I'm sure there's many people out there who have spoken to their doctors or who have been given many different ways to try and shrink their fibroids or get rid of it. And I'll explain a little bit about my story to see if it resonates with you. But I hope you find this video useful. I hope it's, as much as it's difficult to hear, I know that some of you have been through similar situations. Some of you have probably been through situations even worse than I have been through. But together, while we talk and we discuss our journey, I hope that you'll be able to see and feel that I am here for you, and that together, through these videos, will help to support you combat this awful thing called fibroids. And also with the support of my husband, who was the one that helped me through. So I look forward to speaking to you again. If you have any comment or any questions, please leave it below the video. Please like, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'm sure there's many people out there who are probably suffering in silence. But if you do know a colleague who may speak to you about fibroids, please, ask them to subscribe, because I really want to reach out to as many people as possible. I really do believe that we're going to make a difference, and I want as many people to be part of the journey as possible. So until my next video, I wish you all the very best and stay healthy.